So I think we talked about this in the past, but Lupe Fiasco worked with Google, I think first starting with his MIT tenure. And Google approached him to create an AI songwriter tool engine called TextFX. And he talked about this new interview with Sway in the Morning, which Lupe's on tour for his Samurai tour right now. But they also discussed how publishing would work as well. So it's kind of a really cool deep dive into this AI. And then I also have the link so we could actually play with it a little bit if you want.
Do the splits. How does that work? What you do?
What's the negotiation?
So he's talking about the reference to the splits of the song that Lupe wrote called Glass of Water using the AI engine.
Okay.
And then they're going to go.
Oh, who gets to publish it?
Is Glass of Water a song?
It's a
Yeah,
song.
so it was a song that I made, almost like a demo song to show you how to use, how I would use TextFX, right?
Oh, okay.
A glass of water held up to the lips of a marauder, living like a order, a sorta. Hey, a glass of water held up to the lips of a marauder. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. So I know I'm gonna do it like that. So a glass of water held up to the lips of a marauder. Lips of a marauder as the scene, as the input.
Well, this is the
Scene
website.
going dry and flaking. They look like they haven't had water in days. Yeah.
This is like
So I
what it's
think that's
giving
the
him
one.
back.
Glass of water held up to the lips of a marauder, looking like they haven't had a drink in days. All right, cool. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna pin this just so I know where I came from. I wanna do a few things with Marauder. Running Marauder to Explode. There we go.
So Explode is another one. So there's multiple engines that you can run certain things through, and they give you different types of input back.
Rider,
So-
Mary Water, yeah. My Raider, Mayor Rude, Marador, yeah. That's exactly what I was looking for.
So this is like wordplay off of the sound of it. A raider, rudder, like stuff
To
like
decorate
that.
a door with seashells. Wow. And it's cool because I don't have to think about this other stuff because the work's already done. So it's just kind of like just sitting over here. So I'm gonna try more rudder. Feeling more rudderless than a ship without a captain. Adrift, the ocean of life with no destination in sight. That's the one. So we'll pin that. A glass of water held up to the lips of a marauder, dry and flaky, looking like they haven't had a sip in days. Different stage, it's like different ways. It's like this and creep. Yep. I got TextFX focusing on the lips. I'm gonna go back and focus on the glass and reintroduce the glass. But that's the thing, because it doesn't create full work.
Okay.
You know, it creates what I call, again, micros. So it might be a line in a record. There's a tool called Scene where you type in like luxury limousine and it'll just generate all these different scenes of like what a luxury might feel like, a smell like, because I want to get into kind of the olfactory aspect of sense. Like,
Which
so
is
that,
very
let's
interesting
push
too.
that. And so it'll like create just scenarios, just a little line like the leather, the red leather in the back of a limo smells like roses. So it's like a writing coach, but certain tools are like a writing coach inspiration. Some things are very direct. So it'll give you a simile, like luxury or limousine. It'll give you similes for limousine, right?
Yeah. No, but this is a real conversation about intellectual property, right? When it comes to generative AI, it really comes down to IP, right? And that's the biggest issue that a lot of artists are afraid of when using generative AI is who gets a chance to actually own the IP, and particularly when these language models are learning off of something like this. And so the reason why I said this isn't for commercial use because it's a tool or an aid to assist other MCs or writers into using it. And so once they use it as a tool, it becomes their commercial use if they choose to use it. But because of, I'm not going to use Lupe, but use a neutral example. If they use me, for example, want to do political news, right? If they want to know how I think about politics, how I use it, they're training off of my mind. So then once somebody goes to insert themselves how to use politics, it's no longer mine because I helped train the machine on how to use it. So my deal is on the back end kind of dynamic, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
I thought that was fascinating.
that's very fascinating, especially when you see his actual writing process that is being aided by these tools. Now, this is where, my mind goes with it. Say this song that he writes becomes a #1 hit and generates all this money. It's not so much about how it was built, but it was like, okay, if you used these three tools, and say there's a license that you have to pay to use them, and the companies that create these tools have said if you use it to create something that generates money, then you have to pay us a certain percentage of the profit that's generated from what we helped you to create with this, even though it's the starting point is your actual input. But, the fact that we gave you a line here, a line there, we deserve points off that record.
So I think what they're saying there, I don't know that gentleman's name that was speaking, but he was talking specific about that deal. He said, well, because they're using Lupe's mind, like they extracted all this information from Lupe, right?
Right.
So the deal that they have with all this with Lupe is like a lump sum fee. So they pay him for this. And then what happens is if you want to use this, then all of that other stuff doesn't happen on that publishing aspect of everything. So he's paid over here for what that is, and then people can generate whatever they want, because it's not creating necessarily like full-blown ideas. It's just kind of like pieces, and you still have to take the pieces and put the pieces together. So I think that's how they would get around that specifically.
But with the teaching aspect, where they feel like, okay, these algorithms are set up and they're starting to learn, where it's like somebody who could come along, we've seen how quickly these things learn, and from that first time we did put in what we want Drake to rap about, to when it was like 6 months later and we heard a whole fake Jay-Z song,
right? To
where it was like somebody could come along and be like, I want some Lupe bars, and I want to sing about backpacks and lemon cake and Palestine. They put all that together, and you get a whole song. So
the difference between this particular model is that it won't give you a full song. It's not like ChatGPT where you can go in there and be like, write me a song in the format of a Lupe Fiasco that does this. This is giving you like ideas based upon similes and how his brain would actually process in making this, which is very, very fascinating.
Okay.
So it's not like you can have it just like write you a song. It's just going to help you. You type in hamburgers and it's going to have a whole bunch of stuff about hamburgers. You say, well, hamburgers with cheese in New York. It's going to come up with a whole bunch of different things related to that. And so it's not going to give you like a full blown idea. And it's just an idea. And so that's kind of what Lupe was talking about a little bit on there too, because it's not like a full blown thing. I think that's the line.
Okay.
That you're referring to.
Okay.
I think too, it seemed like the guy was alluding to it actually being kind of custom fit to the user.
Yeah.
So whatever I'm giving it or my influence on it is how it works. So my experience with it won't be the same as your experience with it, because it pretty much takes your thoughts and whatever you're typing in, you're giving it. It's not going to give that same energy to somebody else.
And plus
Probably.
the concept of, like Jay Moore was talking about, of the program, quote unquote, doing it. That's not what this is. You can see the way he's breaking it down based off just the suggestions, which he's already brilliant. So this doesn't even apply to him. He's so cold on his own.
It's just a tool.
It's just a tool. And it's actually dope seeing somebody that nice think about how they want to use the wordplay, because even with Lupe, the level that he's at, he made it look that much better.
Okay.
By what was being spat out.
It wasn't even rhyming. So he was just picking out words and phrases that he wanted to insert and then still add on to it. It's almost like not necessarily cliff notes, but it's almost like if you run into a situation where you have like a writer's block or something like that, it's kind of coaching you through it.
That's exactly what he referred to it as a writer coach. And so it's like, there's like a synonyms type of thing too, where you can find similar stuff. And so you find it. And then as long as you're like, all right, cool. I like this idea. Let me mold this into like whatever I'm doing.
And his genius came out even in this little snippet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Just that little bit right there.
Build it too, though.
Yeah. I mean, I think they spent 16 weeks building this model.
Yeah.
So
that's dope.
Okay.
yeah, it's really cool. And there's more to this video. I'd cut it up, but
How would you compare it though to drum kits, so to speak? Because you have producers that produce or make these drum kits, and there are certain artists or producers that literally take it right from that drum kit and create something without necessarily paying the producer that put together the drum kit.
Well, some producers still require payment depending on what you use. So depending on the commercial use, so AJ Hall's somebody, shouts to AJ Hall. He's got a ton of drums out there, but he's got licenses in there when you buy his stuff, and most people do. So I think it's actually a little bit more complicated when you talk about drum kits and sample packs as opposed to something like this, because
way more complicated.
And I think it's also different too. Like do you use somebody's drum break, or do you chop up the sounds, or do you use their one shots? Like, do I just use a kick that AJ Hall played, or do I use a snare that the Count played? Do I use Kaylin Ellis's hi-hat sound, or do I use like a Kaylin Ellis hi-hat pattern? Do I use I don't know, a decap drum break? Like, do I actually use something that's actually involved in movement, or is it just like a one sound where it's just a recording of something? I think it can get a little bit, I would equate to what you're saying. I would say if people are using one-shot sounds, like I'm just using a kick or I'm just using a snare or something like that, that's similar to this model, as opposed to ChatGPT is kind of similar to like a drum break.
Yeah, like a 4-bar drum loop or something. That would be
a whole pattern.
Yeah.
Like, so what would you call the situation with Il Brown and said producer Hit Boy kind of doing?
That's more of a ChatGPT type thing because he took his whole loop.
Okay.
Right. So he took his loop, like a loop that was like that showcasing the sounds in it, and then you didn't do your
that loop that loop that Ills made was his own custom loop.
Yeah.
That he made. So yes, that's different from a one-shot single snare, all that other stuff.
And I think another piece of this as well is that, and what the main difference between these two is that like when you make a drum kit, these are producers that are like recording their own sounds. An AI model, even though it's like extracting information from Lupe or whomever, like they're paid for their contribution for creating that AI model, right? So they're already paid for that. The way that the producer who has the drum kit or whatever gets paid is from people buying the kit. So it's like the publishing aspect of getting the residual stuff is like a whole nother thing on the back end that like, if I put out a drum kit and somebody used my kicks and my snares, I don't really care. I think it's dope if they give me credit. But if somebody like takes the demo version of my drum break that showcases everything and it makes it like into a major release and you don't reach out, I don't even know if I would consider it stealing. I would just be like, why didn't you just do a solid? You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Give me your credit.
Yeah, why not?
Give me some points.
Yeah,
that's why now whenever people sell drum kits or their sound packs, and these sound packs are getting ridiculous now, even if you look at it, because some of them will sell you the stems where you can get more creative. You can break them down and manipulate them however you want. The fine print is mandatory now because it's way past finding something and unzipping it and just going to work.
Yeah.
Like you can't do that now. Like there are sites on here that'll show these are license free. You good to go. You can use these. And there's others where it's like, be clear, we will be doubling back if we hear this somewhere. Yeah. So you have to pay attention and be careful because these licenses, you can definitely get burned.
I suggest, I mean, not to get too sidetracked, but I suggest The Count. I suggest Kalen Ellis. I suggest AJ Hall. He has licenses, but his stuff is good. And I suggest Decap. Those are 4 people that are
all very good,
solid people as well
as
just dope musicians. And I think those are people that you should look at. A lot of other people, like, they'll drag you through the mud for some average ass stuff.
Very, very mid.
But yeah, I thought this text engine AI thing was interesting. I actually bookmarked it because I kind of want to check it out. It's free. You can just go and I played around with it a little bit. So
seeing him do it makes me a little more curious about it.
Yeah,
you know, somebody that legendary. That's dope. Though. I'm not mad at Lupe. Hey. Lupe's resume stands. He don't need to. We can't even use that. Don't even bring it up. He's already a whole legend. So don't even try it.
Yep.